yes, you can negotiate with Hamas. But I would ask another question: in which language? If you're negotiating with Hamas in English, you can obviously can be misled. But if you are asked to negotiate with the Hamas who speaks in Arabic, no, you can't, because the slogans that they raise in Arabic is entirely different from what you hear in English. That's the problem. In Arabic, they say "Min al Maya lil Maya, Filistin Arabia," and in English they say "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." You ask yourself, are they both the same? No. In Arabic, it clearly says that it's a Jewish extermination. From water to the water, Philistine or the Palestine is Arab. That's what they say in Arabic. And when it's just translated to English, it is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That sounds poetic. That's a problem.
Today, I'm joined by Arif Theruvath, an Indian ex-Muslim activist and outspoken critic of Islamist ideology. Arif grew up in Kerala as a practicing Muslim and has spoken openly about once holding anti-Semitic beliefs and conspiracy theories about Jews and Zionists, views he now strongly rejects. Leaving Islam came at a significant personal cost, but his journey eventually took him somewhere his younger self might never have imagined: Israel. There, he confronted the history of anti-Semitism, visited Yad Vashem, and saw firsthand communities affected by October 7th. Today, I want to understand how someone changes that profoundly and what Arif's journey can teach us about Islam, anti-Semitism, Israel, India, and extremism. Arif, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, namaste, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Yeah.
Arif, I want to start from here. You went from someone who has admitted sharing anti-Semitic material to visiting Israel and standing inside Yad Vashem. How does a human being change that much?
Yeah, I think it's much more easier today to speak on that because we have a lot of information and we have a lot of on-ground social experiments that we see. That is, even by saying the word propaganda itself, we know what it is. So as a child, when I grew up as a child in an Indian city here, it was almost like we were fed with a lot of propaganda. And that had a cover of religion. That's how I was brought up. So that religion was Islam. And we all know how Islam promotes anti-Semitism. So it was something which was made to look so normal among us as believers. So as I grew up, and later on, even when I was an adolescent person, and even after that, while I was in the college and all, we routinely hear about some war or some sort of issues happening in Israel-Gaza border or somewhere around that. So almost every time, I used to do one particular thing. That was to go and read the Quran. Okay, I just turn the pages and I will specifically go to some verses where it says that the final victory would be ours. So that's the statement that I always look for. And by reading that, the kind of the way it pacifies myself, that was something which no one can ever understand other than a Muslim. That's what I would say. So as a Muslim, when we feel ourselves oppressed, when we see ourselves getting defeated, but still we see something written in the Quran which says that you will be the final victorious person. So that gives us a kind of a satisfaction and kind of a peace which no one can ever understand. So that's how I was raised as a child. So later on, when I started looking at the things as an ex-Muslim, because I turned out to be an ex-Muslim, not because I saw any of these things or any item from within Islam which was standing against science or against humanity or something like that. Because before becoming an ex-Muslim, I was questioning almost anything like dogmatic belief systems, specifically the profession in which I was, that it was homeopathy. So I was a homeopathic doctor. So homeopathy, we all know that it is something which is so much promoted by even the Indian government, and we usually have some sort of pacts and some MOU signed between Israel and India very often, some of the Israeli universities. So the homeopathic bodies here, they boast about that a lot. So at one point of time, I started looking at homeopathy skeptically, and I came to a conclusion that homeopathy is a pseudoscience, and I was going forward with that kind of educative process. And even I started making videos and speaking on that. So at one point of time, people started asking me, okay, you question homeopathy, but still you are a believer. Still you are a Muslim. So how come that is possible? Why don't you apply the same kind of logic to your belief systems? This is the question that I experienced. So it really made me rethink, and I started questioning even my belief. So that's how I started questioning my religious beliefs and other things, and slowly became an ex-Muslim. And it had its own reasons, like the misogyny in Islam itself was the major reason which took me out or made me to renounce this religion. And also slavery, the kind of slavery that Islam promotes. These were the two things which made me renounce this religion. So then on, I started applying the same thing on any matter that I come across in my life. And that was one such topic, something which needed much more attention, was something as we speak now, is about this Israel-Palestine issue itself. So I think it was in 2014 or 15, the one war that came, and I had a close friend as part of this homeopathic profession, and she was from, I remember she was from Haifa or somewhere around there. And she used to travel to India, and she used to give some speeches here, and we used to have some online discussions and all. So when this war broke out, I just made a post on my Facebook. Okay, and that was something you know that map which says that in 1948 the map was like this, then 67 it was like this, and it goes on like that. And now in 2014 the map is like this. This is that four map, that series of maps. So that I posted that picture, and I just asked one question over there. That is, imagine if this happens to India. This is the thing that I posted. And the moment I made that, she unfriended me, and we just made a stranger. That's what happened over there. And when that happened, I was really surprised to see that, because for me, she was a close ally in homeopathy, and we used to have a lot of discussions, open discussions, and we used to share a lot of information. But when it came to this issue, she chose to block me, and I was really making a little, I would say I was a little rude on making such comments. Because for her, when I look at her from my position now, I can understand, because I was making a very insensitive comment on that day, because without understanding what's going on from her side, that's from Israel's side. So now I understand. But when I made that post, I was not aware. So this is the level of propaganda which happened, and which I was exposed, and which almost every Muslim, every person outside Israel, or any anti-Semite, any anti-Zionist can come across or may be exposed. So this was the reality. So later on, I started revisiting almost every propaganda items, the materials that I was fed with, the maps, the coins, okay? Eretz Israel mentioned in a coin. Because the same coin I had seen before, but I never questioned that, because it's written Palestine. So Palestine was there. So Israel was occupying. This is the same thing which I was coming across. So now I can read the Hebrew word, which is mentioned in a bracket, and which says Eretz Israel, or the land of Israel. Because when I was seeing the same coin in my childhood or in my early adulthood, I was never ever going to read that, because I was never asked to read that, or I was forced to not to read that. That's what happened. So like that, many things. So the journey in a nutshell is very simple. I'm just revisiting only those materials that I was exposed to for a second time. And I'm not doing anything new, but just revisiting the documents, and revisiting the maps, and revisiting the sources, and just making sure that there's a other side for that. Always there's another side for anything. And even in this issue, it was the same. So in 2014, this issue happened. I lost a friend from Israel. But now in 2021, another war broke out. And in 2023, this October 7th happened. Now we are again friends, because I sent her a message. I searched for her on Telegram. I got her from Telegram, because there she had blocked me there. So I sent a message, and we are again in touch, and we just message. And now things are a part of history, that I would say, because this is the level of change, or the kind of process which anyone can go through and can find the truth, and they can stand for, and they can raise their voice for, and they can fight for. So that's the simple thing.
Now, you said that this all started with anti-Semitism coming from Islam. From your experience, is the anti-Semitism in parts of the Muslim world, is this political? Is there a theological component that the Westerners often avoid discussing? For example, Hamas says the fight is over land, right? But really, is it because the land is owned by Jews? Is that the reason? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, two things here. Islam is politics. There's no point in asking whether it is theological or whether it is political, because Islam is a politic. Islam is a theology, which is in fact politics. This theology is part of its politics. That's how it is. It goes. And when you said that it's their land, yeah, as per Islam, it's their land, and that land is called Waqf land. And what is a Waqf land? And it's mentioned in their own charter. In PLO, it is mentioned. And even when Muslim Brotherhood is mentioning about how the fight for Quds, that's how they call it, fight for Jerusalem, it's part of their Islamic duty, and it's a jihad, they say. So if they themselves write it down, they profess, and when they execute the things, all by taking out Islamic doctrines and Islamic rules and Islamic words, Arabic words, and why we would want to ever make them clear of such things, and to say that it's not religious, it is purely political, it's geopolitics. What's the need for that? That's what I'm asking. And this is the point where I reached when I started looking at the things. And that's the point when I started talking back, that this is something totally different from what we were taught and what we were told. This is something very different. So Islam is a politics, and that politics include anti-Semitism. That's the reality, because Islam itself grew by anti-Semitism and anti-Christianophobia, or something like that. You can call it, by the way. It's like Islam divides the people into two camps, the believers and the non-believers, and the Jews, the Christians, and the Kafirs, and all other people, including myself, ex-Muslims, even the atheists. Everyone comes under this non-believing category, and they are subjected to certain rules as per Islamic beliefs, and that includes converting them to Islam, subjugating them, asking them to pay the jizya, and all such things. We know how it goes. So when it comes to Israel and the fight which we see there, they have the clear reason for that, because that land, according to them, was fought from the Ottomans, and they bought that, and that's a Waqf land for them. And that's the reason why they still fight for that. And for that reason, they have a particular group of people present over there, which they themselves makes a self goal, or what you call an own goal, where at one point they have to say that there was no Jews in that region, and one point they will indirectly admit that Jews were there. So this is how it goes. So only a person who gives a close attention to this detail, he can understand this level of hypocrisy, where they will be switching the sides. So in a nutshell, the answer is this: there's no need in separating Islam as politics and theology, because Islam is politics, and this theology and this God concept and other things are just part of that. It's just a facade for their politics. That's it.
In that case, can you ever negotiate with Hamas if their goal is a religious goal, right? Are they ever looking for peace, or is this just war,
that's a
war?
That's a curious case, because negotiating with Hamas, okay, I would say, yes, you can negotiate with Hamas, but I would ask another question: in which language? Okay, if you're negotiating with Hamas in English, you can be misled saying that, okay, you can negotiate, because they speak like free Palestine. Okay, yeah, that's a good call, free Palestine. You can even in India we hear that, free Kashmir. People are asking us, so go and negotiate with the Pakistani those mujahideen. This is what they say. But if you are asked to negotiate with the Hamas who speaks in Arabic, no, you can't. Because the slogans that they raise in Arabic is entirely different from what you hear in English. That's the problem. Because as ex-Muslims, and someone who can at least not a native Arab, but still, if I get a word or something, I can at least go and look at the meaning and we'll get an understanding of that because we know certain words. We understand Arabic more than the kafirs. That's what I would say. So what's the difference? In Arabic, they say, Philistine Arabia. And in English, they say, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. You ask yourself, are they both the same? No. In Arabic, it clearly says that it's a Jewish extermination. Because from water to the water, Philistine or the Palestine is Arab. That's what they say in Arabic. And when it's just translated to English, it is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That sounds poetic. That's the problem. So when you hear the English version, you will think that, okay, why don't you go and negotiate with them? So when it is in Arabic, it's not. And for your information, I would say the Arabic version is the real version. And with that in place, there is no possibility of negotiations. That's the problem. It's not just the slogan, which is in Arabic. Everything behind that slogan is also Arabic. And anything they say in Arabic has a root in their own religion. And that is something which they hold on to their hearts. And they have strong conviction in that. And they literally believe in that. That's the problem. And that's the reason when you announce the ceasefire, we didn't hear any slogan in English, but only one slogan in Arabic. And what was that? Khaybar, Khaybar, Ya Yahud, Jaisha Muhammad, Sawfa Yawar. That's what they said. And what it is. Khaybar, O Jew, remember about Khaybar. The army of Muhammad is coming back. This is what it means. So they will never ever have the guts to translate that in English and to say that loudly. They will only say that in Arabic because they know the world doesn't want to know that. If the world come to know about this slogan, the complete picture will turn against them and the oppressor will become the victim. That is, Jews will be the victim by their own words and the victims will turn the oppressors. That is, those people who are now seen as the victims all over the world, the Palestinians, you will have to admit that they are the oppressors. So they know that. They don't want that to happen. So that's why they just say that in Arabic. The ceasefire slogan is always in Arabic. And that clearly shout the genocide of Jews. They wanted to repeat Khaybar. And what is Khaybar? Khaybar is the raid conducted by Prophet Muhammad. And that was the raid in which the Jewish settlements in those regions was totally exterminated by the Prophet. And he even killed many people and he even took one of her wives from that tribe, Safiya. And that's the war we take now as a warning to warn the Jews that the Prophet's army is coming back to exterminate you. That's the ceasefire slogan that they raised. So negotiation is not a point here. It's all about how you understand them and how you control them. So the world need to understand that. As an ex-Muslim, I'm saying this, yeah.
Now, were these anti-Semitic ideas confined to the extremists, or did you encounter them in ordinary religious life, to the ordinary Muslim of the street? And if that's the case, do you believe that Islam can remove this anti-Semitic part of its religion?
That's a very tough question. Because when I said in the beginning that I was an anti-Semite, was I an extremist? No, I was a normal Muslim. Even now we have in my town here, in my state here, in my country here, even in the smallest village, you will find a masjid and where you can listen to the sermons given there and you can still hear the Maulanas or the religious leaders over there speaking exactly what the Hamas leader is saying. So when Hamas leader, when he says that, We call him as a extremist, terrorist, and other things, except the woke, viral, infected people. Okay, so now I'm glad that at least some of the people in the Arab countries, like in the UAE and in many other countries over there, they clearly classify them as the extremists, and they have clear vision regarding how this issue must end and how the people must move in a direction so that peace will prevail over there. But apart from that, outside the Arab world, the picture is entirely different. We cannot differentiate between who is the extremist and who is the normal person. So what I would say, I would paraphrase what you asked me. It would be something like, is this belief, extreme belief, present in both extremists and in the normal Muslim? Yes, it is there. For the extremists, they know that it is their duty. But for the normal Muslim, they don't know that. They just believe that. That's it. And that's why I told you in the beginning that whenever I hear about a war or some kind of a conflict in that region, even in my childhood, I just went and turned the pages and I just looked for that verse to make myself happy that the final victory will be ours. So this is the thought that keeps on functioning or keeps these people pushing forward, Muslims, to stay in the belief, to make them believe in the doctrines and to hold on to that, their whole Islamic scriptures and other things. So this belief is so extreme, and it is present in both the extremist and in the normal believer. And I think we should give them a chance, to the normal believers, to understand that this belief is something which makes them look an extremist. No one is saying that. And who is stopping this? That is something which I call as a crime that is committed by the left woke liberals. Because when I say that we should give them a chance, these people are not giving them a chance. Whenever we criticize Hamas, whenever we criticize the extreme thoughts that is present and extreme scriptural evidence which is present in Islam, these are the people. Even when I say as an ex-Muslim, these are the woke left liberals. These are the people, they come in between and stop us, not them. And what they say us is, you are Islamophobic. You are mixing religion in everything. So when they say, they are in effect denying a chance for these normal Muslims to learn what is present in this and to realize the reality and to take an informed decision. So they are taking a decision, but that is ill-informed. That's the problem right now.
Now, what did you believe about Hindus when you were a Muslim? And if you had encountered an outspoken ex-Muslim like you today, back then, what would you have thought of him?
The simple answer to that is, what made me an ex-Muslim today, or what made my journey as an ex-Muslim towards becoming an ex-Muslim easy, is the Hindus themselves. And what is stopping other people, other Muslims around the world, not to come out of this religion and to stay as Muslims and even hold on to extreme scriptures and extreme thoughts in Islam? You won't hear that in India. Sharia for India, you'll be finished. It's not by when I say you will be finished, it's not by any violent means. You will be finished in a democratic manner. You will be questioned. You will be made to correct yourself. So what made this? I attribute that to the Hindus here. That's what I'm saying. So the Hindu population here, they are inherently inclusive. They are inherently open to discussions, and they are inherently atheistic. They are inherently free thinking. They are inherently a lot of things which I myself discovered in myself later on. So I'm not saying that it's part of their religion. It's part of their culture. And that religion is part of their culture. That's the Hindu culture. So to become when I traveled to Israel for the first time, at the airport I was questioned because even though I am an ex-Muslim, by name I sound as a Muslim. So I was questioned twice. You can imagine that. And I don't blame them, because it's the part of, and I still remember, just 2 days before my arrival, there was a person from Morocco who had a US green card. He came to Israel and he made a a stabbing attack over there, and one or two people were getting injured or killed. So that was the incident that happened just 2 days ago. So there's no wonder why I was questioned. And when I was questioned, the person there, she asked me, when I said that I'm an ex-Muslim, so she asked me, so you are an ex-Muslim, okay? So do you believe in any other religion now, any other God or anything? So no, I don't believe. I'm an atheist. So she asked me, why don't you then come to Judaism? Why don't you become a Jew? She asked me. Then I said, if as an ex-Muslim living in India, one thing is sure, becoming a Jew is easier for me because I'm already circumcised. So it's easy for me. But I have to learn the Jewish religion. I have to do a lot of things to become a Jew, right? But as an Indian, it's so easy for me to become a Hindu because I can right away declare myself as a Hindu and still live an atheistic life. That's the beauty of this culture. You don't need to learn anything, or you don't need to prove anything that you are a Hindu or something. So this kind of flexibility is something which forces. It's a kind of, I always call it as a secularizing, democratizing pressure, external pressure. So this pressure is something which molded me, which helped me come out of this violent doctrines and religious beliefs, and even which is even legitimized by the left woke ecosystem. Even despite having all those hurdles and other things, and still I was able to come out of that just because of this democratizing, secularizing, positive pressure, which is exerted by this Hindu culture, the Indian culture, which is mostly led by the Hindu people here. That I would admit it openly. And one more thing, why India still remains as a secular country is not because of any other religion. It's just because the majority are Hindus. That's the simple truth here. So, but still, when I say you will find some staunch believers in in the Hindu religion, you will find some sannyasis and some other people doing very nasty things or maybe some ridiculous things. It's there all about their belief. But one thing is for the truth, I would say that is an extreme Muslim, an extreme Christian, an extreme Hindu. You take all of them. The extreme Hindu will be sitting somewhere in the Himalayas, in a cave or doing something which is obviously harmful to his own body. I agree, but he won't harm anyone outside. But an extreme Muslim, that's a real threat to the society. He can blow up anywhere, anytime. That's a problem. And an extreme Christian, I don't think he will be turning out as a nuisance in the public streets, howling hallelujah, hallelujah. Those things you will have to listen to, but it's just, you can just prevent it by a earplug. That's it. But an extreme Muslim, you'll be finding it very difficult to collect your flesh from the streets. That's the problem. Okay, so saying that every religion is equal, every religion is having a problem, I don't buy that. There are some religions, and specifically I call Islam as a rabid religion. So we have to find that clearly.
Now, you mentioned Hindus in India. One thing I hear over and over again is that one place in the world where Jews were safe for thousands of years was India. There was virtually no anti-Semitism, and they were so accepting of the Jewish people. And that is, like you said, because they were so ready to welcome diversity. And that's something that I heard. So I guess that's the reason,
true.
right?
Yeah, that's true. They respect diversity, and it's not something which they just display or exhibit something as some noble quality. It's not that way. It's not operating that way. It's something that comes out naturally. That's what I say.
Yeah.
For example, Hinduism. Okay, there's no such a religion called Hinduism. They call it Sanatan Dharma. That's how they call it. It's a collection of belief systems. That's how it is. Hinduism is a term that we use now for our own liberty, for just to make a clear understanding of what it is, just to distinguish between other religions. That's it. So Hinduism, in that sense, as a collection of beliefs, it is polytheistic. That's what we say. Polytheism means you have a lot of concepts, God concepts, and many deities and other things. So within that belief, they have a sort of democracy among the godly, or a democracy among the deities. So they operate as a group, like a corporate sector division that you can see. There's delegation of power. There are a lot of people. Sorry, there are a lot of deities taking control of specific functions. A god for sun, god for moon, god for the wind, god for the rain. It goes like that.
Hmm.
So they have to cooperate in an amicable manner. Then only they believe that the system will be in a perfect harmony. That's how they believe. Okay, so that shows what, when you compare this to a monotheistic belief like Islam, what Islam teaches is why monotheism is better than non-monotheism. There's a discussion going on here, and the first answer, or the only answer that they give always, is if there are more gods, they will fight each other. This is what they say. What a fail it is! What a failure!
Yeah.
So if two gods, they cannot cooperate just because they are egoistic. They cannot share the things between two gods, and they expect the humans to do that. That's how this religion teaches. But when you look at this,
Hmm.
the Hindu culture, they have different gods and they share and they cooperate and they make sure that the system is in harmony. So, which is beautiful.
Hmm.
I'm an atheist, still I'm asking, which is beautiful. Even when
Yeah.
you make a story that should sound beautiful, that should sound morally convincing, that should be something like worth listening. At least there should be something that you can take home. So there's nothing in this monotheistic. I'm specifically talking about Islam. When we say
Hmm.
that, we are not
Yeah.
supposed to question the belief here. But in Hinduism, you can question. That's what I said. You can be a Hindu and be an atheist simultaneously.
Hmm.
So that's the
Hmm.
difference. So for that reason, when the Jews came here, for them it's just another version of their own existence. That's it. Another group of people. And it's not just with the Jews. It was same with the Zoroastrians who came here, the Buddhists, and even the Muslims. Even to them, they were the same. So when we speak about the Islamic invasion in India, there's a place or there's a region in India where Islamic invasion was not a thing, and that's the southern part of India, because most of the Islamic teachings that we got, as I'm from South India, I can say this, is mostly through the trade relations. But in the North India, it's mostly through invasions. So we have this division and we have this difference of understanding of Islam, even in both the North and South. So that also we have to understand. So, and also in India, we had a long history of fight between the Buddhists and the Hindus. That's also a part of
Hmm.
the history, and that's not something like any sort of extermination kind of thing, but it's an ideological warfare where the ultimate the result of that fight is something, was the internal reform within the Hindu culture. They were forced
Hmm.
to look above the casteism and the caste divisions, because the Buddhism was the result of the casteist existence of this. And I would say there are multiple reasons for that, but still, caste was a great issue which forced a reform from within. And one strong influencer to that reform was Buddhism itself. So that's a long history. But still, this
Hmm.
level of inclusivity is the reason why many minorities, including Muslims even today, find a refuge or find a great home within India.
Now, you mentioned that when you left Islam, you expected your family, your educated family, to accept your decision.
Mm.
What happened instead? And what hurt more, losing your religion or feeling that you were losing your family?
Yeah. As a Muslim, and even today within the left woke ecosystem, they always say that why the Muslims turn out to be extremists, why they turn out to be terrorists, why they turn to terrorism and such sort of violent activism. And the major reason that say is the lack of education and financial socioeconomic backwardness. These are the two reasons mostly raised by these people. And this is something which I can vouch for myself, because my family is so educated. My parents were school heads, not just teachers. They were the principal and the headmasters, and So they were like that. And even my wife was a higher secondary school teacher teaching chemistry, MSc. So you can understand the level of science and other things which were taught already present. But even with all such educational background and financially sound, despite all this, when religion played a role, they chose religion above the relations, above blood, above the the societal values, everything. So it's not about socioeconomic backwardness or education that makes a terrorist a terrorist. It's all about what is in their head. It's about the software. So the people are always innocent. I agree that. But if that person is infected with a virus and if he become a zombie, kind of a rabid person, so that rabies virus is the issue. So I'm not saying that they were inherently like that, but they were made to think that like that. And I have also other people who chose love and blood above religion. We also have that. But for my personal experience, it was the other side. So it's not just that I see that as a personal tragedy, but I see that as an opportunity to learn how people are led away from societal values and these kind of existential requirements, and they are forced to choose religion above that. So I couldn't realize that, and I can stand with them. That's what I take from that tragedy for myself and for the people outside. So it helps me to empathize with other people. Yeah.
Now, you visited Israel. What did you see there that you could have never understood coming from living in India? Did Israel look anything like the country that you imagined it to be? And what surprised you most about Israelis and Israeli Arabs?
I have traveled to a lot of countries. So among all that, two countries that fascinated me other than India, one is China and the second one is Israel. China, why? Because the sense of security it gives us. Okay, and we have all the problems there as well. The communist China, and we have a lot of issues. The forced labor and other things. I'm not going to that. But as a traveler, when we travel to a country, what we look for is the level of security as a traveler I get. Just like me traveling in my hometown. If something happens to me, even in my state here, I can report to the police and other. We have that facility. So that's one country. And the second country, which fascinated me the most, even more than China, is Israel. Because when I travel to Europe, when I travel to other places, many countries in Europe, especially to UK as well, the sense of the lack of security, this is something which made me always, even as a man, then you can imagine how a female can travel. So we have accounts from our circles itself, like fellow ex-Muslims who traveled and faced some issues and all. So this is something which I got from Israel, the sense of security. And also, as a anti-Semite, ex-anti-Semite, when traveling to Israel, that was the second aspect. What I saw there is how the people engage themselves. And usually people say, two Israelis, three opinion, right? I have seen that with my own eyes. I have experienced it, and I happen to be the third person over there in many occasions. So this is something which I try to copy in my life and in my discussions and in my public and political discourses here. So this is something which I learned from Israel. So these are the things which makes a country different from others. Not just the tall buildings or the beaches or the scenic places. You can find them anywhere. You will have that. And one more thing, I found Israel as a microcosm of India. That's what I would say. India, you will have to travel at least 3,000, 4,000 kilometers from north to south or from the east to west and you will find multiple cultures, multiple cuisines, and multiple languages, and many other things. Except for the language, even with language, I would say, if you travel from north to south Israel, you will find multiple people, kind of people, multiple religions, multiple cuisine. You will even find Yemeni food, Ethiopian food, many such cuisines, and not just food, the culture, everything. I've talked to the Bedouin people, to the Israeli Arabs, and to the Jews, and to the Christians, and to the atheists, everyone. So it goes on like that. So it's kind of, without traveling 3,000 kilometers, you will find a mixed bag of cultures and differences coexisting in a place. That's what Israel is. So that made me something to look for, like that calls me back every time. Okay, to come visit Israel again and again. So that's something which made me fascinated. Yeah.
What was it like visiting the communities that were affected by October 7th and physically standing in places where the attacks happened? Being there physically, did it do something that watching on the screen could never have done for you?
When I visited Yad Vashem twice and gone to the Noah Festival site and all October 7th sites. I've gone there twice. First time when I went there at Yad Vashem, I was literally crying, to be honest. Okay. I couldn't control that time. Second time, I knew what I'm gonna see next. So I could take some precaution not to cry. Okay. So that's how I made use of the first visit. And to the other sites, October 7th attack sites, I've gone to Kibbutz Be'eri, Kibbutz Niroz, and other places. So I've visited Biba's family home. I was there. So these were the moments which we find ourselves so difficult, because the picture we get outside is the Israelis all tall buildings and all nasty people and doing all such things, and they have big homes and big things. What I saw in these kibbutzes, most of them were wooden houses, burned down, normal people. They even, most of the people over there and their relatives to whom I made some discussions, or we had a chance to talk to them. Most of them were Netanyahu haters. That's what I saw there. Okay. And most of them were like, they supported Gaza. They wanted to make peace with Gaza and all such things. And when I asked him, now what do you say? Because you were attacked, you know what happened. What do you say now? So they were like, it's not, I'm in pain because they attacked me. I'm in pain because they betrayed us. That's the pain that I cannot bear. Because the love we showed them, they betrayed that love. They hunted us from within. That's something which we cannot realize. This is what they told me. And I have that on record, and I had published it on my channel. This is one thing. And the second one, when I visited this Yad Vashem, as a Muslim anti-Semite, I was told that Holocaust was something which is cooked up by the Jews. It never happened. Most of the things are fake. The Holocaust denial. This is what I was going through. So after long years, after realizing all these things, I never ever thought of ever visiting Yad Vashem. But I not only visited Yad Vashem, but even after visiting that, the first decision that I made was to visit Auschwitz. So the next year, the same year itself, I booked a ticket to Poland and I went there. I went to Auschwitz and Birkenau, and I was there. So Yad Vashem really reminded of something, the need for documenting everything. It's not just about the pain. Even if it is something good, you have to document it. That's what I learned. Because as an Indian, what I find here is the lack of documentation, and these kind of reality being twisted and used for political purposes. This is what we see here. But when I was standing at Yad Vashem, the first thing that came, the need for documenting why it is important. And when I went for the first time, it was just Yad Vashem and the festival site, and it was just after the ceasefire. But when I went there recently, all these sites, the October 7th sites, are now documented. They have turned out to be some sort of audiovisual rooms, and they have made it into proper documents, and anyone can go there and listen to the voices of those victims, getting kidnapped, getting shot, and all such things. They can just live those days. This is what they have done, and no one can ever. I don't think anyone can ever deny those things. So documentation is very important, and Israel has done a very good job in that. And I would say it's a great model for the world itself, because documenting prevents misuse of events. That's the major part of that. So that's one thing. And Yad Vashem, the most striking picture or the display over there which made me cry is the display of those footwears, which was displayed under a glass where we can stand on and look at that. That made me cry, that moment. Even for the second visit, it made me cry, because there's a story behind that. No one understands that properly. Because those chappals, those sandals and shoes, most of them were new. They're not worn out. They're not damaged ones. They're new and fresh looking. Why it was like that? Because they were told that we are taking you to another place where you will be getting a good life and you can come over there. So they took these people on the cattle, that bogies and the train, and they were taken to Auschwitz. You know the history. I'm just saying for the people. So what would I do if I'm asked to travel to a different place? I would dress myself in the best way, right? I will put on the best shoe. I will put on my best dress, my best hat or anything. This is the same thing that they did that. They took out their best shoes, available best shoes, and they traveled. And the moment they landed at Auschwitz, they were stripped, even from their shoes and from their everything. And these are the shoes which we are seeing now. And they were even taking pictures of laughing and smiling people who were boarding the train, and that were used to bring more people from these camps to Auschwitz to get them killed. No one understands this pain. No one will ever see this journey again. And even when I was traveling from Krakow station to that place, Auschwitz, the railway line that I was traveling, just imagine, that was the same route where these people were also taken, right? But now when I'm traveling, I'm in an AC coach, listening to music and seeing something which is so good for our eyes. When I am ready for my breakfast or something, I can have that. I can drink. I can pass urine normally. Imagine the same route being taken years ago by some people on the same route. That was not the same. So that travel itself makes us nauseate. It was not a great moment to remember. So I would ask any person who deny Holocaust to take that train ride from Krakow to Auschwitz. That itself will make you nauseate. That's what I would say.
Do you think that one reason why there's a bond between India and Israel is because both India and Israel have faced a terrorist attack after terrorist attack from Islamists, massacres? We're facing the same sort of enemy on our borders, and we face tragedy as well, and we overcome these tragedies. Do you think that this is a bond that India and Israel have that maybe the rest of the world does not understand fully?
Not just that, I would say, but that it absolutely is a reason. And that reason is not a simple reason, because both the extremism that we are facing is scriptural. That's something which makes us unique all over the world. Because extermination of Jews, or what is written in the Hamas charter as part of their opening statement, is last hour will not happen until the last Jew is killed. There will be a fight between the Muslims and the Jews, and the Jew will hide behind the trees and the stones, and stones will call out, Muslim, there is a Jew behind me, go and kill him. But one tree will protect the Jew, and that tree is Garkar tree. This is the hadith which we have as an official statement in the Hamas charter. So this is scriptural. And when you come to India, here we have Ghazwa-e-Hind. The last hour, those people who take part in the war, along with that person and who helps invade India, the Ghazwa Hind, it is called, the raid of India, will be in the heaven. This is what it is mentioned in the scripture again. So the problem that both Israel and India is facing is not just a random extremist problem. We have a scripturally backed theological issue, and it happens to be a geopolitical issue also. So that's the reason why it is very difficult to resolve. That's the problem. But when you look at the geopolitical issues and the extremism, we have a lot of issues because currently the most Islamic terrorism occurring places in earth is not what we, as we say it in India or in the Israel, but is in the Sahel region, the Burkina Faso, then Nigeria and Sudan and all those places. You will find that, and we have the global terror index which calls out those numbers. So even with all those numbers and the increased number of Islamic terrorism in those regions, even in the Europe we have now, the Christmas is coming. You will find a lot of trucks ramming into people, Christmas markets, and killing more people. We are going to listen to that. But even with all that, these are some acts done by lone wolves or some ISIS backed organizations or people. They have their own reason. But to exterminate a country, to end a country, to transform a country, that is something unique to India and Israel. So for us, we have common grounds and common problem and common reason, and it's easy to understand as well. And the current government in India, I appreciate them for that reason because they understand this much more closely, and they try to engage with ex-Muslims like ourselves, and we used to communicate with them. Still, we communicate with them to share inputs, opinions, and our version of things, how we see that, and even we pick people from the comment section or from the social media all over, and we will be choosing some people, like we will be finding out some certain people who sounds extremist, suspicious, and we report to them. So it's easy for us. So the present government has a specific intent to end this Islamic extremism. So for that reason, for the same reason which we see in Israel, yeah, when you ask me that, I would say that's one of the major reasons why we should stand together. And I think that's very functional, and that's getting some good results as well.
Arif, I want to thank you for your time. This has been a very eye-opening conversation. I really appreciate your moral clarity. Not many people can see issues and kind of leave, let's say, their religion or leave their previous thoughts and things like that. And you actually did it, and I think it's inspiring for people to hear that. How can people find you? You have large social media presence. How can they find you and keep in touch with you, learn from you even more?
Yeah. So thank you, Daniel. Thanks for bringing me here, this opportunity. It was wonderful. So subscribe to his channel.
Thank you.
Keep listening, keep learning, and always try to find the best version of yourself. That's the only message that I would give. And that's the only simple thing that I also did. So anyone can do that. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Jai Hind.
Of course.
Shalom.
Of course.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Yeah.
Shalom.
Yeah.
Shalom.